Good morning. Welcome to the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship located in Durham, North Carolina. We meet on the ancestral lands of the Eno, Shakori, Saponi, Sissipaha, and Lumbee people. Their descendants live here and in surrounding communities today. I'm Reverend Deborah Cayer. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever your race, your gender, whomever you love, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome. Would you, if you're new to this community, maybe if this is your first or second time visiting here in this room, would you rise and body your spirit? We would just love to give you a warm ERUUF greeting. You can wave, you can... Wonderful. Welcome, welcome. We are so glad you're here, and if you're joining with us online today, I want to invite you to put your name in the chat box, and you'll find a link there with information, the same information that folks can get here out in the gallery at the visitor host station, and all of that will help you learn more about us. So we also invite you to the Inquirers class on Sunday mornings by Zoom at 9:30, also in person. And I think that's in the Commons room, is that correct? It's in the Commons room as well. So multi-platform. That's a great way to learn about this fellowship and what's going on here. The link, if you're online and you're looking for it, is on our homepage at the bottom right-hand side under events. And you can also look in our e-news. There is also lots more information on our website about all the things, the classes and programs that are going on here as well. As you know, I am wrapping up my ministry here at ERUUF, as has been long planned. This week, I will be holding public office hours in person and online for anyone who just wants to come by and say goodbye, share some memories. I think hellos and goodbyes are so important. It just goes so much better when we're intentional. So we're being really intentional, and there's a chance, if you'd like to, you could write to me, or you can just wave across the plaza. It all works. But the link for the online will also be in that events section on our website, so you can find that there. And you can also find information on our website about where to find me on Tuesday afternoon. Here in the sanctuary, Ms. Joan Tillman joins me this morning. She's doing double duty as worship associate and cantor, so that's wonderful. And Sally Franz is our guest musician this day on flute, and Kate Lewis is our pianist. Everyone else who makes Sunday morning happening, you saw their names on the screen. So at this time, let's take a breath and find our center. Oh. Just take another breath and just get comfortable in your body that is so good, so beautiful, so holy. And we'll continue our service after the bell with the prelude. So to all who are celebrating mothers and Mother's Day today, we celebrate with you. And for all who find this day difficult or challenging for any reason, we're holding you in our hearts. James Baldwin writes, "For nothing is fixed forever and forever, forever. It is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock."
Generations do not cease to be born, and we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises, the light fails, lovers cling to each other, and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out.
We light our chalice this morning for the light of truth and the warmth of love, which enable us to keep faith with one another, to keep faith with life itself. Our first hymn together this morning is Bright Morning Stars. The words will appear on the screen and Joan will lead us. Would you rise and body your spirit?
Bright morning stars are rising. Day is a breaking in my soul. Oh, where are our dear mothers? Oh, where are our dear mothers? Oh, where are our dear mothers? Day is a breaking in my soul. They are sowing seeds of gladness. They are sowing seeds of gladness. They are sowing seeds of gladness. Day is a breaking in my soul. Oh, where are our dear fathers? Oh, where are our dear fathers? Oh, where are our dear fathers? Day is a breaking in my soul. They are in the fields a plowing. They are in the fields a plowing. They are in the fields a plowing. Day is a breaking in my soul. Please turn and greet your neighbor.
Good morning. We have a story this morning, a story about someone who finds a little bit of light in a dark and dreary time. And what she does with it and what she discovers about that light is really important. So here is the story of the Starkeeper by Faith Pray.
Today, we'll be reading The Starkeeper, written and illustrated by Faith Pray. The world had been dark for a long time, rainy, lonely, dark. Every morning, the girl fed the fish and waited for things to be different. But every morning, the world stayed the same. On one especially wet day, the girl got tired of waiting. She made an enormous wish. She wished the lonely dark away. What was this? A star. It was beautiful and warm and perfect. She longed to keep it for herself. But the girl could tell that the star didn't want to be kept hidden. It needed the girl to help it shine. Surely the best place for a star to light up the world, she thought, was someplace grand. But the people in the fancy house were busy. They didn't even want to stop and see the star. The girl and the star felt small. Next, the girl tried taking it to the shops. Shopkeepers are sensible, the girl figured. Maybe they would know what to do. But even though she knocked and knocked, the door stayed shut. The girl and the star shivered. Finally, the girl took the star to the center of the village. Maybe someone there would be able to help. But no one seemed interested. The star was gloomy now, shrinkier, wilted. The girl felt it too. By now, the star was as small as a smudge, and the world felt the same. I must not be very good at taking care of stars, thought the girl. Perhaps I should forget my wish. Someone else could try to help it shine. She found a perfect spot for giving up. Only someone was already there. Two someones. Maybe there was something the girl could do. It was a very small thing. She shared her sweater and a tiny piece of the star. Now the star seemed rounder, shinier, glowy. Maybe, thought the girl, there were lots of small somethings she could do with the star. The girl and the star went everywhere. Each time she found something to do or someone to help, the girl broke off a bit of the star. And each time, the star grew. Maybe she did know how to be a star keeper. Because it did shine. Not all at once, not in a grand way, but in tiny sparks that warmed and flamed, and joined stars upon stars upon stars that chased away the lonely dark. And the world was different. I hope you enjoyed this online story time from Hialeah Public Libraries. See you next time.
I think that starlight is like the light of love. If you keep it to yourself, it gets dimmer over time. It needs to be shared to stay strong, to stay bright. So we talk about letting our light shine, and that's what we mean. But isn't it funny that the more you give it away, the brighter it shines? That's just really something to think about. So we're going to turn to something different now. Did you know that the original movie version of The Handmaid's Tale was filmed right here in Durham in 1990? And that some people from this congregation were cast as extras, and they actually appeared in that film. Was anybody here this morning who was in The Handmaid's Tale? No, not this morning. But Stephen Colbert joked last week that the Supreme Court justices who want to overturn Roe v. Wade seem like people who think that The Handmaid's Tale was a charming romantic comedy. Did any of us ever think that we'd be living in an eerily similar dystopian situation? I did not. Joking aside, this last week's news was atrocious. Not only because this ruling threatens to take away the civil rights of at least half of our citizens, and not only because a politicized Supreme Court can serve no one well. It's also atrocious because it reveals that the justices basically had this intention, but refused to name it in the last 3 Senate confirmation hearings. All of them solemnly affirmed that the right to abortion had been law for 50 years, careful to never tip their hand that they intended to dismantle it at the very first opportunity. Friends, this is not the Mother's Day service that I had planned, but I cannot take a pass on speaking about this, and neither can the UUA. After Justice Alito's opinion was leaked, the UUA issued this statement. Our Unitarian Universalist faith affirms that all of our bodies are sacred, and that we each are endowed with the twin gifts of agency and conscience. Each of us should have the power to decide what does and doesn't happen to our bodies at every moment of our lives, because consent and bodily autonomy are holy. And when disparities in resources or freedoms make it more difficult for groups of people to exercise autonomy over their own bodies, our faith compels us to take liberatory action. I want to acknowledge that this topic of reproductive justice is broad and it is complex, and that while most Unitarian Universalists are pro-choice, not all of us are. Some people's search for truth has led them to sincerely believe that life begins at conception. Others reason that if we can keep babies alive in the NICU and when they're born at 24 weeks, abortion after that point just isn't right. These are intelligent, deeply caring, moral Unitarian Universalists, and we really ought to try and find ways to have true dialogue about these things. Along different lines, other people have sometimes told me how hard it is to talk about this issue because they would give anything to be able to have a baby, but cannot. Or because they've had the devastating experience of losing a pregnancy. These can be heart-wrenching personal issues, and still, we need to talk about them. Because throughout our history, until now, the United States has had a history of increasing individuals' rights to make decisions about their personal bodies, their behavior, and the decisions that affect intimate decisions about who we can legally have sex with, who we can legally marry, what we can legally use for birth control, and whether we can legally choose to continue a pregnancy or discontinue a pregnancy. People who've studied these issues note that in all of this, issues about who controls the body are what continually show up. Is it the person in the body who is in control, or is it someone else? This is something we've struggled with throughout Western history and also in other parts of the world as well. I'm currently reading a book about the Dark Ages in Europe, and after the fall of the Roman Empire, every body belonged to someone else and had to obey them in a great chain of command, with brutal bodily punishment if they didn't completely obey. In the history of the West, it's only the last few hundred years that we've gradually established women's rights and children's rights and animal rights, the rights of, and before that, the rights of Black and Indigenous people and people of color, and union and workers' rights, environmental rights. But I was surprised to learn when I was researching this that there is one group that has considered all of this intensely from a different perspective. In 1994, 12 Black women in Chicago considered all the ways that Black women's reproductive lives have been coerced and forced. And out of anger and frustration, and with a commitment to the life of every person in society, they created and shared a framework that they call reproductive justice. Nearly 30 years ago, they did this by putting Black women's lives at the center of the situation, and they came up with these 4 essential reproductive rights. Jenny, could you show that slide, please? Yeah, these 4 rights. The right to have children. No one should be tricked or coerced into sterilization, they said. Everyone should have access to IVF and adoption, and there should be supports for very young parents so that they can succeed. You also have the right not to have children. That's a self-determined decision that everyone should make for themselves. And that means that we need to have a full range of contraceptive options, including, if you know you don't want to have children, that you could choose to be sterilized. Access to safe, affordable abortion care was part of what they thought everyone needed. And the right to determine access to abortion, whether you're going to go to a clinic or whether you're going to manage that yourself at home. They said everyone has the right to parent the children that you do have in a safe and healthy environment. That means that you have the right to resources to be able to parent with dignity, parental leave, lactation support, public benefits and welfare, safety from violence, children's welfare, and guarantees that families will not be ripped apart. They also said that you have the right to bodily autonomy. Resources. You would have the resources to access a full range of reproductive and sexual health care needs, and the ability to express your gender and sexual identity free from discrimination or violence, that you would determine your living situation and environment, and that you would be protected from exploitation and coercion. After lots of analysis, they noted the systemic nature of all of this, and they named how racism is tightly interwoven through all of the policies, all of the practices that we have in place right now in our healthcare system and in our laws about what governs the body around our sexuality. And so in addition, they called for racial justice, which they define as the systemic fair treatment of people of all races, resulting in equitable opportunities and outcomes for everyone. As we know from our study and conversations here and elsewhere, white supremacy was invented in the late 15th century as a way to justify genocide and slavery, the theft of land and resources. And as Ibram X. Kendi points out, the laws and policies that sanctioned this grand theft and abuse, it was the laws and the policies that came first. The proclamations of manifest destiny and all that other stuff, that came first. And then bigotry was created as the reason it was needed, and the reason is in air quotes. Then sociologically, anthropologically, what began to happen is that we started to bend reality in order not to see, not know, not talk about what was going on, about the system that was in place and how each of us had a role in that system. The fight for reproductive justice is part of this much broader way of looking at history. People want to reduce it to one very narrow way to teach history, one very narrow way to understand and consider human bodies and sexuality and the reality of abortion, because abortion has always been a reality. When women's place in society was far down the great chain of being, abortion was not of interest, or it wasn't even considered a problem. That was women's business. They took care of it with herbs. That's what they did. No problem. But now people opposed to abortion want to use shame to coerce people to join their own position. Whether they actually believe what they preach or not, I don't know. But they're using shame and around this highly charged issue of abortion, that shame and the issues that they created to get people to submit to their control. I guess it makes them feel better. It doesn't make me feel better. Does it make you feel better? Instead, if we have conversations about reproductive justice as part of a larger conversation about human rights, we have the chance to move from stuck either or, yes, no debate to questions about how best to support everyone's essential human right to life and the pursuit of happiness. It's a different way of looking at it. It opens up more possibilities. We don't have to be stuck in either or. Our faith, our Unitarian Universalist faith, is rooted in a commitment to uphold the inherent worth and dignity of every person, every human being, and also the interconnected web of life. When we ground our principles and when we ground our conversations in these essential principles, we can find our way through very difficult issues by a different way than yes, no, either or. Our Universalist roots especially inspire us to be inclusive and to reject shame as a way to control people. I want to pause here and wrap up this part of the service. I want to turn to a shared affirmation of this very essential aspect of our faith. My colleague, Greta Jo Seidel, notes that abortion is a widespread right, so much so that everyone loves someone who has had an abortion, she says. And that far from being shameful, people who've had abortions are in fact loved, lovable and loved. So Jenny, can you show that picture of the first picture? So I want to offer us a chance to affirm this together. Greta Jo has written a responsive reading called You Are Loved, and that I'd like us to do that together. I'll read a statement, and if you're willing, I'll gesture to you, and you can respond, you are loved. How universalist of you. Is that good? You want to try it? Awesome, you got it. You are loved. Everyone loves someone who has had an abortion. So let's talk about the flip side. If you had an abortion, you are loved. If you've never told a soul, or if you share your story regularly, you are loved. If you are confident in your decision or wonder if it was the right choice, you are loved. If you are a queer, non-binary, trans, two-spirit, or a cis woman, you are loved. If you are child-free by choice, or if you want to have children eventually, you are loved. If your choice was driven by medical viability or by your own emotional health, you are loved. If you found a provider to care for you, or you had to rely on yourself, you are loved. If you were always pro-choice, or if your choice conflicts with your beliefs, you are loved. If you love your body, if you're still angry with your body, you are loved. If you believe God loves you, or if you believe in nothing divine at all, you are loved. If you find yourself reflected here, or your truth is more than words can tell, you are loved. I invite you to join me in the spirit of meditation and prayer. This is a prayer written by my colleague, Victoria Weinstein. We reflect with gratitude this day for all whose lives have nurtured ours, the life-giving ones who heal with their presence, who listen in sympathy, who give wise advice, but only when asked. We are grateful for all those who have mothered us, who have parented us, who have held us gently in times of sorrow, who celebrated our triumphs no matter how small, who noticed when we changed and grew, who praised us for taking risks, who took genuine pride in our success, who expressed genuine compassion when we did not succeed. On this day that honors mothers, let us honor all men and women alike who from somewhere in their being have freely and wholeheartedly given life and sustenance and vision to us all. Let's pause for a moment to bless those in our lives who have been there for us. Dear God, Mother, Father, Parent of us all, grant us life-giving ways, strength for birthing and a nurturing spirit, that we may take attentive care of our world, our communities, and those precious beings entrusted to us by biology, by destiny, by friendship, fellowship, or fate. Give us the heart of a mothering parent today. Amen.
In her book, Honoring the Body, Stephanie Paulsell writes of the mending power of sexual intimacy with a story about the novelist Martin Amis. She writes, after years of unrelenting tooth pain and disease, all of Martin's teeth were removed and replaced. In the midst of this long, excruciating process, he had to wear, for several weeks, a prosthetic device that filled his mouth with saliva, made it difficult for him to talk or eat, and made him feel distinctively unlovely and undesirable. In a note to his wife about the night after he had been fitted with the false teeth, he writes, that night you came belly dancing out of the bathroom, wearing A, your silk bathrobe, and B, my teeth. Both were then removed. This was the war against shame. The next morning, I woke early and lay there quietly, laughing and weeping into the pillow. I felt fragile, guileless, and exquisitely consoled. Fragile, guileless, and exquisitely consoled. That's a pretty good description of how we can be rendered by such intimacy with a loving partner. Fragile, because it is always a risk to expose ourselves unguarded to another. Guileless, because the deepest sexual encounters, the many ways we defend ourselves, our masks, our self-deceptions, fall away, and exquisitely consoled. To have our desire met and satisfied by the desire of another is exquisitely consoling. Honoring our own bodies and honoring another's body in this intimate way, we can lift the soul. It takes trust and courage to simply let ourselves be the sacred and vulnerable creatures that we are.
Will you breathe with me? So I want to invite us to inhale for the count of 4. And as you inhale, send that breath way down to the bottom of your belly. And then let it come up your spine and fill your chest side to side. And as you exhale for the count of 4, exhale from the top of your chest, down through your torso, down into your belly. So, inhale from the bottom up. And exhale from the top down. Inhale into the belly, and then up into the chest. And exhale from the chest, down into your belly. That exercise is a beautiful, simple way that you can always ground yourself in your body. Fragile, guileless, exquisitely consoled, sacred, vulnerable. Can you feel the effects of those words in your body? Our religion tells us that sexuality is part of our inherent humanity. It can be a whole lot of things: messy, wet, funny, bawdy, wild, rough, mysterious, powerful, tender, as long as it's mutual, pleasurable, consensual, and respectful. Sexuality is healthy and holy. It's part of our wholeness. The only role that the state then ought to play in regard to our sexuality is to protect the sanctity of our bodies, our dignity, and our choices. I'm struck again by Ibram X. Kendi's understanding that prejudice doesn't create policy. It's the other way around. Policy, declaration, proclamation, practice, law comes first. It's created to support what particular people want. And then narratives and prejudice are created to support the law, to support the practice. So this can be a great comfort if the vision that's being affirmed by law and codified is something that makes us feel affirmed and supported. And it can be terrifying, absolutely terrifying, if it is not our preferred future. We are not comforted, as it appears that recent Supreme Court judges covered up their intent to be activists during their confirmation hearings, activism which they themselves firmly oppose, and that a majority of the court are about to roll back civil rights on a scale unprecedented. And if the grounds upon which they claim to do this are that it's not in the original Constitution, then we are all in grave danger. Because if they manage to do this, it will encourage them to roll back other landmark legislation. And as they reinstitute discrimination, it is only wise to be ready and to expect that prejudice is going to follow. We can see it happening already. We are living in dangerous times when authoritarianism is on the rise. And so we must consider these sobering facts of history. It took just 5 years to get from Hitler's election to Kristallnacht. It took relatively little time to go from the end of the Civil War to attacks on black bodies, black property, black wealth, and black social position around the turn of the last century. The church and the state historically have been totally disinterested in women's lives when times were going according to their preferences. Abortion by herbs was common, no one bothered about it. In the eyes of the Catholic Church, it was having intercourse outside of marriage that was the mortal sin. They had nothing to say about abortion. Abortion only came into focus as women gained social autonomy in the early part of the last century. Then they started to speak up more about it. Abortion only became homicide, a mortal sin in the eyes of the Catholic Church, in 1960. 1960, which correlates exactly with the availability of birth control pills. Times when women were gaining autonomy over their lives and more choices. They were starting to move more freely in society. Made some people really nervous. In the wake of last week's stunning news, the fictional authoritarian world of The Handmaid's Tale came uncomfortably closer. Sex is a pleasure, and it helps make us whole people, body, mind, soul, and spirit. Becoming a mother, becoming a parent ought to be an honor. It ought to be a joy, even at the same time that it can obviously be a growth experience. Motherhood, parenthood should never be a forced choice or an impossible life sentence. Never. Whether we would ever choose abortion for ourselves or not, our faith calls us to draw a bright line between the power of the state and the inherent worth and dignity of individual lives. Unitarian Universalists welcome anyone to join us in working to ensure that abortion is truly safe, legal, and rare, and always accessible to anyone who ever needs it. There is much more to say. We need to talk about these things, and we shall. But right now, we are going to turn, and we are going to continue with our service, because we come to this place with great longing, with great yearning, and sometimes with fear, sometimes with a need to be consoled. But we come here with hope, and we come here with the urge to serve others. We do this with our time and our talent and our treasure. And so we are the ones who support this fellowship, support this congregation, and as a reminder of the privilege that we have the freedom to gather freely and speak our truth. Don't ever take that for granted either, friends. That we have the privilege to speak the truth as we understand it, with each other, with our disagreements, with our love. That's why we pass the plates, as a reminder of the preciousness of this. And this is what we support. So at this time, I want to invite the greeters to come forward and pass the plates as we listen to this morning's offertory. We give thanks for all the generosity, the beauty, and the goodness that help to weave the fabric of this beloved community. Whew. We're going to round up our service this morning, and we are going to sing together one last time about the goodness that's flowing through each and every one of us. There's a river flowing through my soul and yours and yours and yours and everyone's. And Ms. Joan is going to lead us.
Yes.
Would you rise and body your spirit?
And if you know the words, you don't have to look at the screen. Just saying. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul, in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart, in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind.
Soy un amasamiento. I am an act of kneading, of uniting and joining that not only has produced both a creature of darkness and a creature of light, but also a creature that questions the definitions of light and dark and gives them new meanings. Go out into the world, friends, do justice, love mercy, join with those whose rights are denied, love children, make the world a better place for them. Go today and thank someone who's a mother, who's a parent. They are the light of the world. May it ever be so. Blessed be. Amen.